it's my pleasure to talk to Chaplain Major Matthew Spencer and his wife, Kristina Spencer. And welcome to God-Sized Stories. It's a pleasure to have you guys over.
Oh, thank you so much again for having us. It's an absolute
Sure.
honor to be here.
That's
We're
awesome.
definitely excited. Thank you. Thanks again. This is definitely a fun time. We appreciate you allowing us to come on here and just discuss our book and talk about the military life a little bit.
I love that. Well, first of all, we appreciate you for your service for our country and all the sacrifices that you've had to make. I know that there are many, and put your lives on the line. I know that you've had you've been in Iraq serving our country and different places. So I want to first of all just, of course, really everyone that is listening to this, I'm sure, is very grateful for your service. So we appreciate it very much.
We really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Well, I would like for you to start by telling us a little bit about your life in the military, your calling really as a chaplain. So tell us a little bit about how long you've been in the military, and if you wanted to be in the military since you were a little kid. Tell us about it.
Oh, wow. So I'm fifth generation Air Force, actually. So my family prior have served a lot in the military, and growing up, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I had a few options, and I ended up signing up for the Air Force right out of high school. So I joined on the enlisted side for 6 years. So I did security forces, which was a great start to my career, great start to life, and went through 9/11. So that's back from 2000 to 2006 was the first time frame of service, and really learned there what it's like to sacrifice and to serve and to go through something very difficult like 9/11. And I think that's where, things really changed for me and gave me a different perspective on my country and freedom and service. And got out after those 6 years and really was a little unsure what to do, and really felt God pushing on my heart to do something different, within the military. And Kristina had been praying over, my journey in that path, and the chaplain corps came up, in that conversation. And, she really gave me the encouragement to go to school and to get my degree, to try to go back in and become a chaplain. And I started going to school at Liberty University, and before you know it, I had one degree out of the way, and I was excited about that and really enjoyed it. And also learned simultaneously about the chaplain candidate program in the Air Force. So about the time I finished my first master's of divinity, which is what you have to come in as a chaplain, I joined the chaplain candidate program and really got a great look at what chaplains do day to day and what that life would look like, and really knew that was my calling at that point. So everything kind of fell into place, and I started a service as a chaplain in 2013. So
wow. It's been a while, over a
been a
decade
little while.
now.
Blink of an eye, here we are in 2025.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? And they always say, like, you can only talk about marriage after 10 years of marriage. You can only talk about being a chaplain after 10 years. So you got the credentials.
We've been married for 21 years, so
you've got the credentials. Yeah,
just a little bit.
Yes, we had our 25th anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
So, yes,
awesome.
together we probably can count so many people.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
For sure.
That's wonderful. Well, and so now what about you, Kristina? How did you meet? How did you meet Matthew? Like, did you ever imagine you'd be a military wife? Evidently, he has a long family history in the military. What about you?
No, I did not think that I would ever be a military spouse. Matt and I met when he was stationed in Cheyenne, Wyoming. He was a missile cop, and I was working for the government in the education system. And we just had the same group of friends. And I remember I came home one day for lunch, and he was in my parking spot at my condo. And I was like, okay, well, who's in my parking spot? And then I see him get out of the truck, And I made a joke. I was like, well, you're in my spot. He's like, well, this is my spot. No one owns the spots, I said, what are you doing here anyway? He's like, I live here. I said, what do you mean you live here? I live here. There was a little courtyard, and his condo was on one side of the courtyard. Mine was on the other side. We had lived there for over a year, and neither one of us had ever ran into each other.
Wow.
But then as I go to my door, I heard, I just heard this voice that say, it's him. And slowly but surely, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but the minute you see someone, then you end up seeing them all the time. And we
Oh,
started
yes.
seeing each other all the time. We were bumping into each other and started having Sunday dinners where, all of us would get together, the group of friends, and cook out and watch football and, just have time and fellowship. And then our courtship grew from there.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
such a cool story. It's
I-
not as cool as mine. I'm from
Okay.
Brazil. My husband is American. And I'm just kidding. No, so
So what's
love
yours?
story. It's a long one, but I had a language institute in Brazil, and he came, and we did one of the services we did was translation for events, and my husband and his family came to an event in Brazil, and I was managing the translation of the event, and that's how we met. It's a long story.
Gosh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Long distance dating. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Yes.
If anybody tells me, oh, I can't date him, he's in the other city, he's an hour from me, I'm like, what? Let me tell you this story. If it's God's will, he's gonna move mountains, right?
Isn't that the truth? Absolutely.
True. Very true. But so you started serving as a chaplain, and of course you have been a wife for 21 years of a military serviceman, and so you guys know exactly what goes on in the lives of couples and families. And I know I have friends who have been in the military, and one of my good friends, when my girls were little, they lived in the same neighborhood, and her husband had been deployed to Iraq, and the kids were small. So I know kind of firsthand, because we were at the time, they ended up moving away, but at the time I was close to see how hard that was, right? He was gone for 8 months. And so I know you wrote this new book that you guys, it's your first book together, right? Hopefully
It
first
is.
of many.
Yes.
So
Yeah, we have
Valor Vows.
Valor and Vows, a tactical guide to a mission-ready marriage. Yes.
Wow. So this book is really for military couples, right? Like that was in your heart, was to help military couples. Tell me a little bit about the idea behind this book and your purpose for writing it.
I think for me, understanding what the couples go through day to day, and us being one of those couples, and the chaplain corps piece and working as a chaplain in the Air Force has really given me so many different opportunities to counsel, so many different opportunities to learn those pitfalls of marriage, within a military platform. And, there's so many different elements that go into it when you're, in a relationship in the military. You're the moving, the time apart, the, different types of little stressors and life balance, if you will, of serving and being a spouse of a service member. So it was really just put in our heart, after learning the difficulties that many marriages go through, that they don't have to, and they can thrive. But there's some certain things you have to do and learn and incorporate in your life and in your relationship to make it thrive. So that was really, for me, the push behind writing the book.
And we wrote this book from a place of our own brokenness, and I think I couldn't have written it any other way. Our marriage at one point was on the brink of divorce. We had papers, that were ready to be filed, and it was really God getting a hold of both of us and saying, okay, are you going to be obedient to what I've given you in this marriage? Because if you give me your marriage, I can take this brokenness and I can make something out of it. And through a period of about 9 months, we went on this individual journey with the Lord, and really just asked him to change our hearts, to change our focus, to change our perception of what marriage was, and really learn what marriage is supposed to be in his eyes. And he gave us these principles that we talk about in the book. We talk about things like chain of command. What does that look like? And we walk the couples through Ephesians 5 and God's perfect design for marriage. But in chain of command, that also is a military construct. We talk about what it means to take that oath of office, to put your service before yourself. And it's that same thing. It's the prioritization of marriage. But none of those things would have really happened. I don't feel like they would have happened unless we would have gone through what we've gone through. And it was just our heart for couples. We saw God do this dramatic restoration in our marriage. And we said, you know what, if he can do this for us, how much more does he want to do for other people? And we have to just be obedient to do our part, to put pen to paper, and then let him take it and disperse it wherever he feels fit.
You know, I love I'm always interviewing people that have the same story of like brokenness that they turn into a ministry, that they understand, you know, that God doesn't redeem just for us to start having a good life again.
Yeah.
He redeems so that we can, you know, we can help others, right? We can comfort
Absolutely.
those with the same comfort that we ourselves were comforted, right? And so I love that. And I do know that this is a very important book, because I know that the issues that you have faced, and that some in particular are very, very much common to the military couples, right? So I want to ask one of you, what are the biggest issues that military couples face when it comes both like to individual situations or as a couple in the military?
I'll start. There's a few, and what comes to mind first would be geographical separation. That happens a lot of times, with our couples. Frequent relocations. I've lost track of how many times I've moved since 2000. And different states, climates. You have to adapt wherever you're put. That creates communication barriers. That's another one. Reintegration challenges. That's what I've learned in this assignment has been very difficult for our folks, because they're at such a high tempo. When they reintegrate back into their normal career field or into a different location, they have a hard time readjusting, to normal life, because we're in such a high pace environment here where we currently work. And also, financial strains. We see that a lot, within our couples. So that can lead, that can lead to mental health concerns. That can lead to infidelity risks, domestic violence. So we really recommend that couples, I say, use their own communication strategies. I don't know if there's one particular perfect pattern, but I think it's good. It can go for individual couples. Some communication styles work better, for each couple. And that's kind of what we throw out in this book is here's some different tools for communication and how to navigate that as a military couple, because it is different.
And when you're a spouse and you're moving and you have to think about your children, all the times that they have to switch schools, all the times that they have to make new friends, all the times that you have to reapply for a job because, you can only have a job once every couple of years. Those things also add a significant amount of strain. And we do walk the couples through in the book, just some tactical, practical things. We emphasize the importance of getting involved with your military community. I can remember, briefly, those sisters in arms that I've had for, my goodness, almost 25 years. And those were members of my own family, that they became so close to me that I would consider them family members. But those were the ones that helped me with my son, helped him make friends. If one of us was sick, they took the ball while, Matt was out in the field. And so those are things that you just can't, you can't just gloss over.
Absolutely. And you know, we know that data out there, research shows that marriages, like about 50% of marriages end up in divorce, but it sounds like the numbers are actually even higher in the military realm. So why do you think the military couples are at greater risk?
I think we experience challenges maybe that other couples don't. Now there are a lot of similarities in every marriage that every couple has to navigate, but our world is different. We're in a 3% of people in the world who do what we do, and that creates a lot of differences within your relationships. So I think extended separations is a big one, and like I said, the reintegration piece, and there's really never establishing roots somewhere until retirement potentially.
Right.
And that might be 20 to 30 years or more for some families. And like I said, again, financial strain, working with younger couples, in the military, they are receiving pay raises now, but it can be difficult, navigating those financial barriers and things of that nature. Age and maturity of service members who marry young, which is pretty high in our
That's
world.
pretty common too, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
very common, and they just don't have those tools yet to navigate starting out a new relationship and a new marriage, and then all of a sudden, just like we were apart for our first year.
Yeah.
So those type of things are thrown in the mix, and it really can create challenges that drive that risk higher for separation or divorce.
I remember I was talking to a spouse about this exact subject just a few days ago, and I explained to her that so Matt and I got married, first year of our marriage, he was on a remote assignment in Korea, and because of his security clearance, he couldn't really tell me much about his job. And that's a significant constraint on a marriage when communication lines are supposed to be open, but yet there's that confidentiality as well. When there are work stresses that you really just cannot talk to your spouse about, what outlet do you have? Where do you go for those things? And that's another reason why we brought this guide to the couples, is because we want them to know that there are options for you. There are places that you can go. And for those spouses that are coming into the military, that are fresh out of basic training, they don't really know what they're signing up for. So we also take them through that when your service member, when your husband or wife takes that oath of office, you essentially are taking that with them. And it is a great weight of responsibility, but at the same token, it's such a tremendous privilege. And I'll say, after being on this ride with Matt for, almost 25 years, it's the best adventure I've ever been on.
Oh, yes. It's full of, it's like a wild ride, right? It's a lot highs and lows, and
For sure.
and you are learning as you go by the grace of God.
Yes.
Well, I know that you, Kristina, you are also a mediator, a couples mediator. So,
yes.
And you have a women's ministry. Is your women's ministry focused on wives of military personnel or military women?
It's all encompassing. Yeah, it is all encompassing. I do work a lot with military spouses, but I never turn anybody away. The marriage mediation piece is something that Matt and I have actually been able to do together, and we have seen just significant successes with that. But yes, military for sure, but everybody's welcome.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, so let's talk a little bit about your book in a more practical sense. So somebody that's listening say, you know what, I'm a military wife, or I am in the military. How does your book help the couples address through very specific challenges in their marriage?
I'll think about.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, babe. I'm sorry.
Valor and Vows was born out of a journey, of the highs and lows of a military life. So, our experiences, and as we mentioned before, not everything you go through is perfect and pretty and the way it should be, you know. So we are bringing those challenges and how we work through those things and how God really transformed marriage and what it's supposed to look like, you know, through this book. And, you know, over 15 years of counseling military couples, we really know and understand the navigation of the challenges that they all face. And yeah, we do hear a lot of the same thing, but we also learn different things each and every year, and each and every place we're positioned to, you know, to meet couples' needs. So I think, you know, working through the things that we discussed before, the book really talks about separation. You know, what does that look like? How do you navigate that, you know, as a couple? How do you stay fresh if you're apart, you know, and how to properly communicate, you know, as well in a deployed environment or in an environment where I was stationed where I couldn't really talk about my job. You know, a lot of times that's not what you should be talking about anyway. You know, leave those things aside, and we talk about those type of principles as well. But I'll let her weigh in on this too.
Well, each chapter we give the couples tactical tips for various topics. For example, communication. We break down, you know, what are the keys to communication. And then after that, we give them some discussion questions, some things to reflect on. We close out every chapter with a prayer over that specific thing. And the topics could be anything from rules of engagement, which is how to navigate conflict successfully, to asset management, which is all about finances, how to talk about finances, setting financial meetings with each other, having them like business meetings where you literally just carve out 15 minutes of your day, talk about what's going on. What are your goals for the month, for the quarter, for the year? And then, okay, move on. Date nights, anything like that, intimacy. We've got 16 different topics that we go through. And after every single chapter, we give them discussion questions and prayers that they can use to strengthen their marriage.
That's great. So real life examples, things that they actually can relate to, and then your insights from helping so many couples for so many years on how to navigate those issues. So that's excellent, you know, because a lot of times I always say it's great to read books that will talk about a subject, but if you finish reading the book and you don't have any tools in your hands to actually put things to practice, that's where a lot of books, a lot of sermons even, you know, they lack, because you need to help people that are going through that, because they're going to come and say, okay, yes, finances, how do we tackle this? How do we tackle this issue? So I love that the book is practical. And that's the way I believe that every book, Christian book, should be, you know, because we have the answers in the Bible, but we need kind of like, you know, what you go through and just sharing.
Yes.
And we did create the book too, as a tool that you could teach from. You could take this book and teach it. You know, you could take this book and create a Bible study with it, you know, or you
what
can
a great idea.
Or small groups or couples retreats or things like that.
Oh, that's such a great idea. Yeah, because you have those military bases, right? Where communities and the wives and the husbands could start a little Bible study together. That's a great resource.
Yes.
I love that. So let's talk about if you have one spouse who is wanting to make things better, wanting to work on their marriage. The other one is just not, either in denial or is just not in that place. Can your book help?
100%. That was our story. You know, I knew what God had for our marriage, and I knew that there was nothing that we had gone through that was not repairable. I knew it was going to take a significant amount of surrender, humility, and time. But I was willing to go ahead and do that. For me, divorce was not an option. And then for, you know, in that same token, I remember I was listening to a sermon from Charles Stanley.
Oh, that was my pastor for 20 years.
Oh my gosh, that's such a small, that's such a small world. Well, it was on obedience. It was on obedience. And I remember he said, when you are ridiculously obedient, radically obedient, to the Lord, you can guarantee him to produce the consequences. He will take the consequences from your obedience. And that was, I wrote that in the notes in my phone, and I said, okay, I'm going to be obedient for obedience sake, for the sake of obedience, whether it's going my way or whether it's not, whether my marriage is restored or whether it's not restored, because either way, God will honor my obedience. And thankfully, he did a significant transformative work. I'll let Matt share a bit about his journey, but it just it blew me away when I surrendered my own desire, my own will to God's perfect will, what he did.
It's incredible. Yeah, Dr. Charles Stanley, we were in his under his teaching for 20 years, really,
Oh,
until
wow.
he stepped down. But I have two bricks in our house. That's one of his life principles: obey God and leave all the consequences to him.
Oh,
Right? He
that's
used
so
to say
crazy.
that from the one of them is behind me here by the Brazilian flag.
Oh my gosh,
But
that's
yeah.
so
Very cool.
cool. Well, that
And I
it's
have a
stuck.
whole shell that's all Dr. Stanley's books. So
That's
Oh,
awesome.
that is so great. Yeah, that it stuck. That was our that was my go-to for that whole
yeah,
season, really.
that's amazing. Well, tell us your perspective, Matt, on that same issue.
For sure. And I deal with it quite often in the counseling realm of, one spouse will want to make things work while the other one is detached or has given up or has lost hope in that relationship. And, I think the principles that we talk about in that book are ones that if you can get both couple or both members to apply, then let God start healing that marriage through those
Mhm.
principles and through his word. And once you explain that to them, rarely is it a case where the other person just doesn't love that individual anymore, or, they've just been hurt maybe, or just confused about, their own journey, whether it be through the military because of separation or because of deployment or because of things that they've had to do or been through in the military. And a lot of times that'll just create that division in the couple. But once you can get them both to say, hey, yes, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to try something, then, that's when we can start applying these principles that we talk
Mhm.
about and step by step building that bridge back. I look at it like a staircase. You're just taking a step here and a step there and seeing them grow. And also an important piece of that is having them see that they're actually going in a positive direction and growing.
Mhm.
One, individually with their own personal relationship in Christ, which is the driving force behind the whole marriage. And two is, wow, I'm seeing my spouse grow, I'm growing, and we're getting better here. We're not where we want to be, but we can see that there's hope here. And I think the principles that we bring through Valor and Vows are those type of elements of a relationship that we've learned through dealing with those couples and
Mhm.
see them work. And once we can share those stories with them and show them how and why it works, because it's written according to God's word, and that's the
Mhm.
that's the way for marriage. um if both members are 100% in on it and you're using 100%, you know of God's word, your marriage has a 100% chance of success.
That's
So
right.
that's kind of how we look at it with our folks.
Mm, I love that. And we know that one of the big things that happen is whether because of the separations that couples in the military have is loneliness, right? So you have a lot
Yes.
of time
Yeah.
wives, like my friend, who her husband was gone for eight months. I remember
Mhm.
twice during the time that we lived in the same neighborhood. Now, what do you recommend, like for couples and individuals, whether it's the one that goes or the stay or the one who stays, to build a support system around them?
So I think the number one is building a support system and communicate effectively and openly. So
Mm,
we've kind of built some, different points of contact, if you will, within the book. And the first one is that communication piece. because it starts with that. How do we communicate effectively and openly while we're separated? And a lot of times you have this type of scenario, whether it's Skype or whether it's a FaceTime, or in some scenarios you may not have that capability, and you have to figure out different and creative ways to connect with each other. So that's the biggest one that we talk about with our couples. And also local military groups, join local spouse groups maybe, or groups of individuals who are going through what you are, and you can share with each other and kind of go through the journey, with someone, and I say that, but make sure that it's a good group that has the same values that you do.
Yes.
So you can share in that. I think number three, even if you're apart with today's technology, you can still attend online retreats. You could do an online marriage.
Yes.
You could do an online workshop. There's our capabilities now are not like they used to be. We can make these things happen in for the most part, in most locations that we serve. So that would be in my top three. I don't know if Kristina wants to add on to that, but I think communicating is the biggest one, and surrounding yourself with the right support system.
I agree. No, I mean, like I touched on before, my sisters in arms are people that have been in my life for 25 years. And that came through the Key Spouses, the Key Spouse Liaison Program, the Spouses Clubs, through Military One Source, through the chapel, and the more that you stay connected to your military community, I think the better every assignment is going to be. It's kind of just like anything. It's what you put into it that you will take out of it. But even in that, having a purpose in your own life. I realized a long time ago that my identity could not be in my husband. That was a really big issue in our marriage, in the beginning of our marriage. My identity was all wrapped up in him, and I lived, I breathed him. And when he wasn't gone, I gave him a hard time about not being around. And I had to learn that my identity is in Christ alone. And he has given me gifts, and he has given me talents, and he has given me a purpose, that it's perfectly okay for me to go and pursue those things, because those were godly things. Those were things that he gave me to do. And when I did that, I got that community, and my husband loved me more.
Absolutely.
Because he could be free to love me, instead of feeling like there was that neediness that was always there. So that would just be my follow-up to what he said.
I love that. It's funny. I was just talking to my youngest daughter. She's 19, and we were talking because I was a businesswoman for many years, and then when I moved to the United States, I started working a corporate job, and then I got pregnant, and we felt very strongly that I was going to stay at home after that. But during that entire time, so I've raised my kids and worked at the same time, but like doing ministry and doing, translation jobs here and there, helping however I could. But I told my daughter exactly what you're saying, how important it is, even if the Lord calls you to stay at home with your kids,
yes,
that you never lose that sense of like, I am an individual. Lord, what do you want me to do outside of just being a mom? Because those kids are going to grow up, like I have 2
100%.
adults now, I have 2 adult young women now. They are gone all the time.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful that during that time, right, that they were little, I was doing a little bit and cultivating my ministry and my gifts, and so important, because otherwise, and I think that this is so big with military women, especially because of the nature of the job, of the husband's jobs, of having to be to travel and moving. It's pretty common that they are stay-at-home moms, right? And then I would think That and
A
so
lot
that
of them are, there is a mix, but you do have many that do stay at home, yes, or work from home.
yes. Hmm. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
they need to make sure that their identity is in Christ, like you said, and that they have their personal God-given
Yes.
purposes, right, for each phase of life.
Yes.
But it's such a great conversation. I wish that we had a long time, but we're getting to the end of our conversation. I wanted the two questions that I have. The one that are very important. Mental and emotional challenges for the military. We know we hear so much about veterans, suffering from help me here,
PTSD. Yeah.
PTSD. My gosh, I got messed up with my consonants here. PTSD.
Yeah.
Veterans that suffer from that, and then the coming back from the getting back into life, with the family after a deployment, all the mental, emotional challenges that they have to face. What are some of the most difficult issues that they face, and how does your book help the couples that face that kind of problems?
Well, as we mentioned, we definitely face unique challenges, in mental and emotional. And I think that's something we talk about a good bit, is there's a difference, and it depends on the type of service or experience that you have, maybe during a separation or a deployment or something of that nature. Or oftentimes it could even be not a deployment, but maybe the spouse has to go ahead to the next base 6 months early, while this one spouse has to stay back and let the kids finish school. Or so there's different scenarios for that create different types of stress. But when it comes to the PTSD piece, I think we got to do better at reintegration. So we have to do better at marriage reintegration, but also reintegration for our individuals in the service. And it starts with the marriage, in my opinion. So when you get back, a lot of times that service member or the person that's been gone, they just kind of want to slip right back into to the routine. And the other spouse has been doing that routine for 6 months to a year. And I think we talk to our spouses a lot about take it slow, go step by step, be support to that spouse, but understand that they've been doing this while you've been gone, and it's been effective. They've been keeping everything going, so have compassion, have some, I guess it would be strength to not just jump in and take over, but to lend a hand, and let them know that you appreciate and understand as much as possible, and that you see how much that they have sacrificed, and then opening that communication line to come back in and help out and to reintegrate yourself back into the family, because nothing can hurt like separation, and nothing can tear down the principles of how you ran your household like being apart. So to me, the reintegration piece is something that all couples need to understand is very valid and very important. And how do we navigate it, and having open communication about it. And there's different tools and tactics that we talk about in the book, I think, that could apply to different couples, and depending on what you've been through. So that's just my opinion. I'll let Kristina fill you in on what she feels.
No, I remember when Matt came back from Korea, for example, it had been a year. So the bills, the household, our son, I had taken care of everything. And when he came in, it was funny because, and I'm saying this in love, but he was starting to kind of like give me instructions on what to do.
And you're like,
I'm like, okay.
I've been doing this
for a whole year.
The major, I've been in the house, right?
And we're used to, and saying that, because we're coming from a place where we were probably in charge of something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course.
So
you come home and you're not in charge, and it's like, what do I do?
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
like, okay,
and it was.
and Christina's like, I'm the major of this
Yes.
household. I have been for 1 year, so
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. The way that I folded the shirts worked for 12 months. The way that I'm folding them now works, but it was really us learning how to first and foremost understand that we are on the same team.
Mm.
We're Team Spencer. And that word, that phrase, Team Spencer, I can't tell you how many times, we've looked at each other and in a moment of frustration and Matt said, okay, I'm on your team. Or I'll say to him, I'm on your team. And then it automatically disarms the situation, and have grace, take, like he said, take your time. This is a journey. It's not a race. When you come home from a long assignment, everybody wants to see you and they're all very excited to see you. So whether that's extended family members or whether that's kids or, friends or whoever, acknowledge that. And that's all fine and that's good. But we really talk to couples and counsel them and share with them in the book. You have to take designated time for your marriage, even if it's an overnight where the two of you just go and connect and no kids. Don't talk about finances. Don't talk about work. Don't talk about anything else. And just spend that time in reconnection because that's what brings you guys back together as a team. And then you go reintegrate into the regular, craziness of your day and of your life. And that has been, that's been a huge help for us. And it's been a great help for our couples, when it comes to the PTSD and, I'll let Matt get into it a lot better, more eloquently than I can. There was a period in our life where Matt was under such a significant weight of stress. And it was a burden that I could not fully understand. It was a weight that only God understood. And as a chaplain, as ministers, and I'm sure you understand this, we're the ones that are supposed to have it all together. So where do we go that we can have a safe space to be able to share what's really going on in our lives? And I would advise, and we share this in our book, find that safe space where either you go individually or you go as a couple to talk. The chaplain corps, they have 100% confidentiality. So you can go to them without any fear of repercussion, without any fear of breaking confidentiality, and have that safe space to be able to share what's really, really going on in your life. Because that's when we can get to them and we can be proactive. That's when we can see the change.
Sad. Well, one last question for you too. So I know that when you had in your heart to write this book, you had a dream for it, right? Like you had I'm sure that this is what I hope for, I pray for this book. So talk to someone who's listening to this interview and tell them how you hope that this book is going to help. And maybe I have some friends who listen whose children are dating military personnel or in the military, and maybe this book, they're going to buy this book for their daughter. Have a friend, a neighbor whose daughter just married a military man, and so talk about your hopes, how you believe that this book can help the couples.
I would say to the couple who feels hopeless, there is never anything that God cannot fix, and there is nothing that God cannot do. My heart behind this was for that couple, for the couple who felt like they were navigating this alone and that there was no hope. I can tell you that God can do anything. The only thing that he requires of you is your heart. That's it. When you can give him that, he can take everything that you're going through and he can turn it around. Beyond this book, beyond this story, we want to provide resources. We want to be able to say, okay, we have books for you. We can help you get marriage retreats paid for. We can get you mediation counseling. We are here to do whatever we can humanly possibly do to help you navigate your marriage and have 100% success, because we're living, breathing testimonies that it's possible.
And you have a website where people can can go and connect with you? Tell us a
We
little bit about
do,
that.
yes. www.valor, all one word, .com. Our book is there. It's also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. We have a little shop. They can subscribe. They can send us their information, and we will get them any resources or anything that they need to have a wonderful, thriving marriage.
It's wonderful. Major, do you have any last words that you'd like to share with us?
Just to piggyback on what she mentioned on your last question, I really think this is a powerful tool, whether you're just starting your marriage or whether you've been in it 20 years. There's powerful elements of this book that are useful for the whole range. And, to me, after the years of counseling and dealing with military couples, I must say the number one thing is priority. Put God as your priority. Your relationship with Christ is your priority. Your marriage will work, but it has to be founded on that. So have a foundation, of faith, and prioritize God first, and then let everything else fall in place. And I really think this book helps do that, because that was my heart on it, because I see so many people come in with problems that they feel are so significant that honestly, all it is a misalignment of priority. And if you can get that correct in life, so many things course correct themselves. So this book will really help do that. I do pray that it's a resource for people to utilize and teach from. That's my heart, because I like to do retreats and different things, and I really feel it could be a great tool for that as well. So we just want to thank you for allowing us to talk and share with you.
Oh, I appreciate you being here. And everybody, you are going to find all the information on how to connect with the Spencers on my show notes. Go there. There will be also a link to a form that you can submit for the drawing of a copy of the book. So if you are interested, you can write down there and you can try to get a copy of the book. So if you're the lucky winner, you're going to have it shipped to you. So this has been such a great conversation, very needed book. I appreciate all you do, and God bless you all.
Oh, God bless you. Thank you so much. It's been our honor.
Thank you.